Hey there, it's Shamir. This is my first YouTube video that I'm actually uploading, and just doing a quick search in YouTube, I thought I would upload a video as it relates to wanting to become an aircraft maintenance technician here in Canada. The designation that we do hold here is what's known as an aircraft maintenance engineer. Doing a search in YouTube just a minute ago, I saw that there's a lot of salary estimations as it relates to Canada and a lot of videos about pros and cons as it relates to being an airframe and power plant technician in the US. That's the American designation. So I thought that I would just upload some of my personal opinions. I'm not being paid to make this video. I'm not being supported or sponsored by nobody. This is just how I feel, no BS. My experiences, my thoughts on the industry, where it's going, and just provide some no-nonsense information for someone who's looking or trying to pursue the trade and where to go, and also some of, again, the pros and the cons that I've experienced. So in Canada, we are known as aircraft maintenance engineers, or AMEs for short. The Americans go by AMPs, airframe and power plant technicians. And over in Europe, a lot of the countries in the European Union use the European Aviation Safety Authority, EASA B1 and B2 designation. Surprisingly, I personally hold the electrical, or the E rating, on my aircraft maintenance engineer's license. But what I was going to say is, surprisingly, in Canada and the US, it's a vocational training route that you do. And specifically in Canada, it is a 2-year trade program delivered by an accredited college. And so it's not a $25,000 a year university type education. It is trade school. And so that was surprise one for me when I was looking to get into the industry. The training is provided, the basic training is provided either through the military, you can go that route, or if you want to do the accredited college route, it's a 2-year program. Now, what accreditation means is that the time that you spend in school and the exams that you write count towards your overall time apprenticing on a shop floor. The time that you would need to be an apprentice is reduced if you obtain your accreditation and graduate from an accredited school. And your exams that you do write also count towards your license. So at the end of your time, all you have to write, in Canada anyway, is your regulatory exam. So that's one perk of being an AME here in Canada, is the Transport Canada, the regulatory authority here, recognizes that, hey, we need to speed up the process to get people licensed as quickly as possible to get more people into the industry. I personally graduated in 2012 in June, and I got my first job in November of 2012. So that's probably about 4 or 5 months in the job market. And bearing in mind, I graduated into a job market where things were slow. Nobody wanted to even look at me as a new hire, wet behind the ears, green to just get out there and turn tools. No company wanted to take the risk on me. Whereas now, it's, you have a pulse, we'll give you a job. You're breathing, you get a job. So it's a very dynamic time to want to pursue being an aircraft maintenance engineer. It is a very rewarding career, but I'm personally going to get into like my story and, again, some of the pros and cons that I've personally experienced and why it might be for you and why it might not be for you. Why I got into it to start is I graduated high school in 2008. And what was happening at that time? Economic downturn, economic meltdown, as far as I'm concerned. So after high school, I tried to segue into university for aerospace engineering. And right away, I was looking around at, fourth years coming back and asking them what their plans were, what the job market was like for an engineer. And I was in Toronto at the time. And they were like, no, we're not looking in the job market. We're coming back and doing master's degrees. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm reasonably book smart, but I'm not graduate level engineering book smart. And so if they're coming back to do this and there's no job prospects, what the hell am I going to do? And, what am I going to do with an undergraduate degree? It's going to be a paper. It's going to be just a framed piece of paper, really. And I was very fortunate enough that my father really helped me out. He covered that first year of tuition for me. So he was awfully pissed off when I said, nope, screw this, I'm walking away. A lot of my friends that I made were laughing at me, like, how are you going to walk away from this just to go to college or do something else? At that time, I didn't even know. So it was really hard to navigate some of those social aspects of walking away from university. But the street smart person in me was like, hey, man, this is BS. I'm not going to be taking on student loans to come try and get a piece of paper that's going to be worthless to me when, they're at the time graduating 5,000, 6,000 engineers from undergraduate work for 500 jobs. Like, that's not feasible. And I was never the 4.2 GPA guy. So I walked away at the end of 2009 or the first year and did odd jobs here and there, odd temp agency warehouse stuff. And I actually got into aircraft maintenance just one day on a whim. My dad, who's also an aircraft maintenance engineer, showed me his tax statement. And I looked at the income brought in, and I was like, wow, okay, well, do you need some kind of 4-year program at a university? Somebody said, no, it's a 2-year vocational program. And I was like, wow, for 2 years, you can be bringing in this. And so I was like, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? I can give it a shot, right? And so I enrolled in 2010 at Centennial College, and I grew to like it. I grew to love it. And it was surprising to know that just doing a 2-year program put me light years ahead of a lot of my friends that I went to university with. And so I got into it, yes, because I saw what the earning potential would and could be. I got into it because I've also always wanted to be around airplanes. I was always an aerosexual. I was always at the airport. I was always at Pearson Airport watching planes land, just looking at a tail. I can identify what airline is flying as a kid. I had all the books. I had all the scale replicas. Just aviation was always big in my house growing up. And so it was a natural progression and a natural way to be around aircraft. And most importantly, I always like to tinker with stuff. I was always the type to ask, why does that work the way that it does? Even if I wasn't good with my hands at the time, I always had this burning desire to ask why and figure it out and physically take something apart. And so it was natural for me to segue into the trade. And so with that being said, some of the pros of wanting to become an aircraft maintenance engineer. Well, pro number one, it's a great time to be an AME right now. And it will probably, in my opinion, continue to be a great time to be an AME. You hear about the pilot shortage. That's what gets all the headlines. That's what is always in the newsprint, in the media. But in the fine print, or in just kind of tucked away in a random paragraph on the third page, is the maintenance shortage, which I think is going to be worse. I just have an article pulled up here, and I'm just reading from it, and it's from skymag.com, and it was written just in August 2019, and it says, according to the 2019 Boeing pilot and technician outlook, a whopping 769,000 new maintenance technicians will be needed to maintain the world's fleet within the next 2 decades. So that's staggering enough. But from a Canadian perspective, excuse me, a labor market study released by the CCAA, Canadian Council for Aviation and Aerospace, in March 2018, anticipates that by 2025, so there's 5 years from now, there's going to be a need for 5,300 new licensed AMEs to keep pace with the industry retirements. Now, the Canadian colleges across the country only graduate about 600 technicians every year. Now, of those 600, only 77% go on to work in the industry. So anyone street smart would go, well, there's a demand that needs to be met. Maybe I can meet the demand and be compensated as such, right? And it's only going to get worse. So that's pro number one. Pro number two, if you do work for an airline like I do, and in Canada, a lot of your flag carrier, like your flag carrier Air Canada and their affiliate feeder airlines, WestJet and their feeder airlines, Porter, Air Transat, a lot of these companies offer travel benefits that you would never be able to take advantage of as a regular consumer. I have friends of mine that, frequent Tokyo, frequent Hong Kong, Europe for peanuts. And if you're a younger person, if you're not married, you don't have kids, there's nothing tying you down, or even if you're married, and even if you have kids, taking advantage of even being able to fly standby or even fly confirmed for next to nothing, depending on how your organization works, that is a real perk. It's there's nothing that can be said for what the real value of that is. I personally haven't taken too much advantage of it. I'm more of a homebody, but I have friends that abuse it. Like they're never in the country. So that's pro number two. Pro number three, for me, I find that a lot of the hand skills I've developed over the years, I've been a technician for the last 7 going on 8 years now, and a lot of the hand skills and a lot of the recognition of like how something would come apart and go back together, a lot of that's transferable. So I work on my own motorcycle. So in the wintertime, I'm always in the garage. I'm, doing brakes, oil changes, cable lubes, chain lubes, your basic maintenance. For someone, though, who's also, for the example, riding a motorcycle, that might be basic for me, but for someone else, they would need to go pay for that. So I've only developed the confidence to do something like that because I do work on airplanes and I'm working and using my hands all the time and looking at stuff going like, oh, this needs to come apart to get at something else. So those skills are 100% transferable. It makes you a better technician through and through. And that you can't put a price on that. If anything, me being the frugal guy that I am, I've saved a fair bit of money just being able to take something apart and look at it and just bring in the part that's failed to the proper place where it needs to be and go replace that. And I wouldn't have the confidence to do something like that if I was in another field or in another industry, or not even just so much I wasn't in a trade. And one of the final one more pro number 4, is the sense of accomplishment, the pride. To me, there's nothing better than being able to rectify an issue on a multi-million-dollar airplane. And it's because of me that plane is flying, and I can put my family on that. That there's no better high for me. And as a result, not only that, you're, as an aircraft maintenance engineer, you're playing in a very select group of individuals. In that same article that I referenced, there are as of 2018, from their data, June 26, 2019, I apologize. There are 17,662 licensed aircraft maintenance engineers in Canada. In a nation with 30 million people plus, there's less than 20,000 people doing what I do. And there's that level of pride. And you can't replace that. And that 17,662 people of all the classifications. So there's M1, which is your general aviation, your Cessna 150s, 172s. Your M2, which is your transport category aircraft. E, which is your electrical, which is what I hold again, and your S, which is your structural work. Of those four, there's less than 20,000 people doing that in the entire country. Like, there's a level of pride that can't be replaced, and like I thoroughly thrive in that. And the fifth pro that I know with just talking to my friends in the industry is that it makes for a great plan B. And that's not only specific to aviation, but a trade in general makes a great plan B. And what I mean by that is if, you spend a couple years in the industry and you realize, I really want to pursue something else. Whether that means you got to go back to school, or you want to do some training elsewhere, or whatever the case may be to better yourself and advance your career, you can use your qualifications to contract, actually, and be a contractor and have a side hustle. And in the way that the economy is going now, and I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I know that it's always a great idea to have options and have side hustles. So if you want a means to use your qualifications to fund what you really want to do, having an aircraft maintenance engineer license is a great way, and working in aviation is a great way to do that. But with all that being said, I have to address a lot of the elephants in the room. There are there are a few cons. Con number one is being an aircraft maintenance engineer is thankless work. You are truly behind the scenes of an operation. And the best analogy that I can give for that is when you land at your sunny destination for your week-long vacation and people are clapping, they're not clapping for you. They're clapping for the pilots that got you there, but we provided them the airplanes. So if you were to ask 10 people at the gate waiting to go somewhere sunny or wherever they're going, how their aircraft, or even if their aircraft has ever been fixed, a lot of people would probably say, no, that plane is probably perfect, doesn't need to be fixed. And if you want the appreciation and you want the acknowledgement that you are doing, you're doing good work, I think that's only going to be kept within the pool of your coworkers, the pool of the industry as a whole, but you're not going to get it from the general public. And so if you're someone that wants the acknowledgement of doing good work, you're not going to get it. And if that's a big driver for you, I'm sorry, you're not going to find it here. Two, the second con is it can be a very high pressure, a high demand drain on your mental health. And what I mean by that is operations are very time sensitive, especially when you're doing line maintenance where you're doing a lot of the gate to gate, you're doing a lot of the overnight stuff, and I'll get into that as another con later. And you got to take a delay, you got to cancel a flight because something's not airworthy. There are a lot of pressures that you're getting it from passengers, you're getting it from flight crew, you're getting it from management. And if you don't have the mental fortitude to separate the job or the snag that's going on to keep that non-airworthy plane on the ground and your own mental stability, it can be a massive drain. People screaming at you, people crying, like you got to have that sense of safety is number one. Like there is no shoulder to pull over on at 36,000 feet. So you're crying that you can't make it down to Puerto Rico for your vacation? Well, tough titties, it's not happening because the plane's not safe to fly. And you're going to have to be okay with that. And we got to fix the airplane, and we're going to fix it. Nobody's saying that we're not, but, having all these different influences and forces screaming at you to get something, to get a result, it's got to be done safely, and safety is the number one reason why we do what we do. And over time, if you're not able to separate the demands from the state of your mental health, it will wear on you. And I know that the industry is trending to more focus on mental health, but just know that it is a con, and it's still a big problem where organizations really have not caught up, I find, to the demands and the level of responsibility that we do hold as license holders signing for aircraft that we say are airworthy. I think that there's still a little bit of a lag behind the mental health demands of the job and how organizations operate in that space. Con number 3, and one of the more important ones for many people contemplating coming into aircraft maintenance, is the schedule, i.e. night shifts, holidays, snowstorms, abnormal weather. Here in Nova Scotia, where I'm at, we had Hurricane Dorian last year. That was an anomaly. But if you're scheduled to work, look at any airport. It's a 24/7, 365 operation. So if you're scheduled to work and it's 15 centimeters on the ground of snow and it's minus 20, and you're on that schedule to work, you're going. It's a night shift, it's Christmas Eve, you're scheduled to work, you're going. And there's no real sense of appreciation from the general public, I find, in that, oh, like, yeah, it's Christmas time, yeah, but I'm working. Sorry. If that's important to you, like the being off on holidays and being around family and night shifts, the main thing is that because it's a 24/7, 365 operation, if you're working or scheduled to work, you're working. And the other thing as it relates to night shift is that you got to really have good fatigue and circadian rhythm management. Night shifts, studies are out there that link night shifts to decreasing health risks even. And so you really need to manage and figure out how you as a person operate while you're on nights. I exercise more frequently now. I stage a lot of my sleep habits when I'm going from day shift to night shift because it is a 12-hour, 11-hour shift, right? So I have to stay up the night before a night shift. Or if I'm going on to a day shift, a 12-hour day shift, I have to wake up early the day before and just be awake the whole day to transition my body. But doing the switching, if you need to know how you function to get that switching right, because if not, you're really going to mess up, your body. You really will, which will play into the state of your mental health and everything else that comes with that. Con number 4, a lot of the chemicals that, you need to use to keep, and not only just basic maintenance, service an aircraft or fuel an aircraft, they're not good for you. Working with hydraulic fluid, jet fuel, some of the sealants. A good example is a substance called Mastinox that are used on a lot of landing gear. It's not good for you. Methyl ethyl ketone, isocyanate paints, contact cleaner for electrical switches or electrical components. That stuff, not only does it not smell good, it's not good for you, period. And I find that nobody really talks about it. And, for me, I find that stuff's really important just because, I'm not going to read the MSDS sheet, when plane's boarded, good to go, except something needs to get done real quick. I'm going to just get my respirator, but I'm going to need to know, and realistically, I need to know what I'm dealing with chemical-wise. But in that same breath, pardon the pun, a lot of companies will provide you with the safety equipment, the respirators, the gloves, the coveralls, and everything else that you would need to use the chemical safely. It's going to be provided to you. But where you run into problems is when people want to be macho and say, oh, I don't need that. And, my health is good now, so I'm just going to go not use anything, not use gloves, not use a respirator. Come to find out, down the road, they've taken years off their life because they've been exposed to it and been around it, right? Con number 5, and this is a real bane of contention with me, is that aircraft maintenance engineers are not considered a Red Seal trade here in Canada. Now, I don't know if this is something only unique to Canada, but what that means is there's no tax break or tax deductions for the tools that we buy. And to put that in context, though, a hairdresser, and to take no shot at hairdressing, I'm bald as all can be. Like, my hairline is so far back, I salute way back here. But a hairdresser being a hairdresser, or you are a hairdresser, you are a part of a Red Seal trade. Aircraft maintenance is not. Now, I personally don't know why. I mean, the rationale that they use is that as an aircraft maintenance technician, you're strictly adherent to an aircraft maintenance manual. So in their eyes, all you're doing is following instructions. Now, with that being said, in theory, quote unquote, is anyone can just read the manual and go fix a plane, which makes no sense, but that is the rationale that they use. So a lot of people coming into the industry, it could be, it'd be nice to have a way or a method to reduce some of the load as it relates to basic tooling to get a tax break on that. But no, because we're not a Red Seal trade, we can't get that. And for me, that was a big sticking point, personally. And that could be a dissuader for a lot of people wanting to enter the industry. And my final con is and this applies to a lot of trades. This is not just aviation specifically. A lot of the soft skills, and by soft skills, as it relates to the generation gap that is occurring on the hangar floors across the country, it can be very daunting to navigate that. And there is no real pretty way to navigate that. And what I mean is, you're 20 or 21, you're coming onto a hangar floor as an apprentice. You're not shit. Like, you're nobody, in the grand scheme of things. You're not responsible for anything. You're here to learn. But you're paired up with somebody who's been doing the same job or in the same capacity longer than you've been alive. How do you navigate that? There's no real way to go about mitigating some of the clashing, but if you as an apprentice are the type of person where you think it's a weakness to say that you don't know something, that you feel like you should know something, but you don't know it. For 12, 15 years, you were taught that, saying I don't know is a sign of weakness. Well, in aviation, if you don't know and you do something that messes something up, you're going to know very quickly that you effed up. And so I think it's a big con that if you're not prepared to admit that you don't know something and to also navigate that dynamic, you're going to have a massive problem. But the industry doesn't prep you for that. That's just something you're going to have to hopefully naturally learn. And so if you're looking for the proper guidance, I guess, it's not quite set up right yet. And I think it's getting there because the industry has to get there. But a big con for me personally was I'm 20, 21. This is like my first serious job, and I'm working with multi-million-dollar airplanes with people's lives in our hands, and I'm paired with someone who's been doing this longer than I've been alive. I'm not going to question them, or if they ask me something that I should know, or they think that I should know that and I don't, how do I navigate that? How do I know that that person's not going to throw me under the bus and tell me that, this person's an idiot and shouldn't work here anymore? Like, it puts a lot of younger people in an awkward position, right? And yes, safety is the number one driver of why we do what we do, but excuse the cat. it's one of those things where if you don't know how to navigate it and you never choose to navigate it, you're going to get burned, right? I know that I've listed a lot more pros, a lot more cons than pros. However, I can genuinely say that I love what I do. Having been in the industry the last 7 going on 8 years, there's not been a day, even with all the crap days that you're going to have, and every profession, every industry, every trade is going to have shit days. There's not been a day where I say I hate what I do. You know, I'm always learning. I'm always adapting. I have to sometimes relearn a system that I've learned in the past just to troubleshoot it. And I'm all about making myself a sharper technician, a better technician. So I think that if you go into or want to pursue the field in that way, I think you'll get a lot of reward out of it, even with a lot of the cons. And now a lot of the organizations are stepping up to identify a lot of these cons and mitigate some of them. So anyone trying to come in the door, it's only going to be better for them. Excuse me. And that's just not money either. That's quality of life. That's work-life balance. That's been a huge thing, a huge driver in the industry right now. And the reason why I feel like I should put this video out there anyway into the universe is I wish that I had a video like this when I was younger, because I could have been in the industry 1.5 years, 2 years sooner had I known, you know, what are some of the things to expect, what are the pitfalls there could be, instead of having to, you know, just take what I thought the people that would have my best interest would know, take their word as gospel, right? And my hope for this video is that it helps younger people. It helps people trying to make a decision with post-secondary education. Do I pursue a trade? And this video, yes, is specific to aircraft maintenance, but it can also, there are parallels between pursuing a trade versus going the university route. So with that being said, I do believe in the end that dirty hands do make clean money. So if you're willing to get out there, make it happen, you know, willing to put in the time to learn, become the best technician that you can be, and always strive to be the best technician that you can be, you can do very well, not only in this industry, but in a trade as a whole. So with that being said, stay hustling, stay safe, stay smart. I'm out. Peace.